Let's call to order the City of Port Richey City Council meeting for July 27th. Please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Mr. Lord.
Thank you, sir, council. Lord, we just want to thank you for the spirit of unity and love and faith and peace that was in the park Saturday working together. Lord, we're thankful for the business support and all those that work and shared, Lord, to help get back to school. And Lord, we just ask you continue, Lord, to give favor and protection to our police and our fire department. And Lord, we do just ask a blessing as we serve the city together. And we want to thank you for all our parks and the city workers. Lord, we just pray you give us a heart for our city, that we'd have wisdom and understanding. We pray for our mayor and council, our city manager and staff, Lord, guiding us in decisions to be made that would be the best for your plan for our city, Father. And we just thank you. We ask you to continue to be with the Hartley family and just touch any of those that need your strength and healing and peace. And we just ask you to lead and guide us tonight in Jesus' name. Thank you, Lord. United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Scott Tremblay.
Here, Billy.
Vice Mayor William Dittmer.
Here.
Councilwoman Jenny Sorrell.
Here.
Councilman Todd McClary.
Here.
Councilman Tom Kinsella.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager John Duke.
Here. Looking for approval of council minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. First, we'll go to comments from the general public. Pastor Lord.
Leonard Lord, I pastored 8114 Lee O'Kidd Avenue, and thankful to be in the city and work with y'all. I appreciate you. Just want to give a report on the backpack giveaway. I know the Hartley family, I believe, had something going on, and just want to thank the city for continuing to encourage them. We gave out at least 165 backpacks. I know they was probably more, but I know 150 went through to get prayed for. We had some that had their lives changed and saved. Even some of the young ones manifest the presence of the Lord with some gifting and things. And would you believe the chicken we had? There was 32 boxes of boneless chicken breast. And the way we got that is the truck driver lived in Embassy, and the crates had been damaged, so he come to Port Richey Dispatch. So about 7:30 a Sunday night, Dispatch called me. I met him. We went to County Line Road and loaded up 32 boxes of chicken. And so that was out for our chicken at the park. And also Daniel Bernard donated about 400 quail. So between that and the sausage he provided, had to get a few buns, but things was great. And just a good spirit. It was one of those spirits where people just wanted to linger around. I felt more of a warm come together, helping one another than I had experienced. I really appreciate it. And the fire department, police department was just great. The captain from the fire department just had a good time. And of course, Officer Roberts had a good time. And also, we were able, I didn't know y'all had to buy hand sanitizer. But just to let you know, for the fire department, police department, that he loaded the cruiser and took, I guess, over to y'all and here. And we have probably a third of that pallet left. And so if we can help also some more of the drinks. So we want to thank Volunteer Way for helping us do that, and in an abundance for the city. So just thank you for what you do. Our next thing coming up is going to be CureFest. And at the last meeting, I gave you what CureFest was about. All this was just a heads up at our last luncheon. And you'll see the little half-sheet flyer. Save the dates, Saturday, September 25th, 8:30 to 1:30. CureFest, tackling community projects together in Jesus' name, eating together and celebrating our unity. Sponsored by Somebody Cures Pasco and various churches and ministries. And I did meet with Mr. Duke today, and it seems like it would be good to do it in Waterfront Park, so I got the application for the permit. So we're working, so hopefully we can be there. It's close for the project, so we'll meet there at 8:30, get together, go out, then come back and just kind of celebrate what we did in the city. So any projects in the city we can help, please let us know, okay? And thanks again for Saturday, all the help and giving, and Lord bless you, and just let us know any other way we can help. Thank you so
Pastor.
much.
Pat Rogers?
I just want to talk about water bills, because mine was twice as much as it's ever been. And a third of the month, I wasn't home that much. And it says I used over 6,000 gallons of water. And for years, I have used on average 2,000. I know that the service man that came from the city checked my meter, told me he had a stack on his clipboard, all with the same complaints. You know, so I know I have to go in the office and take care of it, but I wanted it to be out, and I want so that other people know if they have that problem, that they can let you guys know there's something wrong.
Okay. Thank you, Pat.
Okay?
Mike Tadlock?
Hey, Mike Tadlock, 4948 Bay Park Drive. I'm right on the corner of Bay Boulevard and Bay Park. I appreciate you guys, first of all, for taking a minute just to hear me out today. Just want to make a couple comments. I feel like, hopefully this doesn't come off disrespectful, like beating a dead horse. I know we've been here for the last year, bought the house, I think last June we closed on it. And I've watched some of the meetings here and heard a lot of my neighbors and other people, obviously through the meetings as well, talking about the speed limit and the speeders going down Bay Boulevard. So I know this is an old subject, but it's just terrible. I mean, our house is, if you look at 4948, we're on the corner of the canal, and from our house all the way down to Channel Drive, which is about a quarter of a mile probably, there's no other houses on the opposite side of the street, of course. And then on my side, there's only the park, which, you know, kids and different people are at. There's no other houses. So it almost makes us feel like when cars are either coming around that little bend and they see that long straightaway going towards the condos, or coming from the condos up, it's just like free for all down through there. And I mean, I know the speed limit signs say 30, but I mean, they're doing, you know, 50, 60 miles an hour a lot of times up through there. And I just hate it because that sidewalk, I know you guys are probably all familiar with it, it's maybe 2 feet off that road. And there's kids, we have dogs, we walk dogs, we have a lot of neighbors that walk up and down there with their kids and strollers. And I'm just, man, I'm scared sooner or later somebody's gonna get run over, a kid's gonna fall off his bike, or, you know, something's gonna happen, and we're going to be kind of behind the 8 ball. I don't know if there's any opportunities. I would personally pay for some speed humps if we could ever do something like that out there. I mean, I'd be willing to do whatever, you know, we could to get that stuff, get a contractor set up and get that done, if there's anywhere. I know I made a couple notes real briefly from Channel Drive going, I guess, eastbound back up the road all the way to Old Post. There's only 2 speed limit signs in that whole area. It's almost 3/4 of a mile from the condos to Old Post. And there's only 2 speed limit signs, and they're both going eastbound. There are none going westbound down through there, even through the curbs, I believe, where you live, Mr. Dittmer, as well. There's no signs down through there. There's one, you know, children playing sign, but that's about it. On the other side of Old Post, going towards Walmart, of course, there's only 2 other signs, one on each side of the road. So, I mean, just the lack of signs, I think, you know, some other signs might help. That's really all I was going to say. I just want to bring that back up again. Anything that I could try to help do or you guys could do. I personally, I don't know if you guys had, I know one of our other neighbors heard, I invested a couple $100s and bought some 30-mile-an-hour speed limit signs that were basically like the state manufactured ones from a certified place, but they're black and gold. And I actually hung them out on some poles out by our house with some screws. I talked to a couple people, you know, through the police department and the city at different times, and Nobody seemed to think it was going to be that big of a deal. But I put them out there, and I think one of the city workers came out at some point, took them down one morning, and they took them in. I called, and they brought them back over to me to give them to me, and I hadn't put them back out or anything, and I don't intend to unless you guys, obviously somebody gives me different permission, but just anything that we could do to try to slow, the cars down or something. I know some of the police have come out before, and they'll sit, Zimmerman and I think Detective Williams, super nice guys I've met in person, and they both came out and sat, across from my house or down the road. And of course, when the police cars are there, people are going to go 10 miles an
Yeah,
hour.
we understand your point. We're
Yeah.
trying to keep everybody to that 3-minute
Yep.
limit, so I appreciate it, Mike.
Yep.
And the chief is here, and he's aware of it. so
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Move forward to comments from the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Update on the dredging, the canal dredging project. We had provided the city has provided a response to the public comments that were received. That's gone back to the county representative for that grant. They'll forward it on to Treasury. The majority of the comments were supportive, ranging in support, but generally supportive. There was a theme through the supportive comments of this needs to be a more system-wide approach. We need the city, the county, and the state to be involved. Obviously, that's outside the scope of our project, but clear voice in those positive comments that it's not just one or two canals that need to be addressed. There were a couple of comments that kind of centered around the idea that this is a waste of money, we should spend the money in some other way, and there was a couple of suggestions. So I think there was 10 or 11 public commenters in total, and 8 or 9 of them were positive. 2 were of the ilk of this is a waste of money. The Coatee River Landing project, the survey work continues. Saw surveyors out there this week. The property purchase that we've approved, I expect that to close within the next week. Still waiting on a couple of documents to be signed by the seller. A couple of staffing updates. Mr. Chuck Ray has started with us as code enforcement. He's in the orientation process, getting out on the street and starting the code enforcement work. The CRA grant manager, Pam Lynch, starts on Monday. She was in yesterday to do paperwork, and so we're really looking forward to having her join our team. The state CRA audit on the 14th of July, which has been, I think, the day after council meeting 2 weeks ago, we received an additional 8 questions from the auditor. Took us several days to put the answers together for that. Those were returned back to the auditor on the 20th of July. The past 2 weeks, I met with today, spent 3.5 hours with DEP and the stormwater regulation permit that we are in the process of renewing. They reviewed policies, SOPs, reviewed our record-keeping processes, had lots of suggestions for improvements. They also did a field visit, went out and looked at stormwater structures, and had some suggestions for our stormwater team to improve that system. They did express appreciation for the work that's been done. The public works staff have been out diligently working on stormwater structures as they did before the hurricane struck, but continued to do that over the past couple of weeks. They did suggest that we need to look at our rate structure, and so I'll be bringing a proposal for a rate survey for stormwater, water, and others. Compliance costs are going to increase dramatically. That was one of the clear messages from DEP. They talked about how enforcement has been pretty lax in the state of Florida. They're getting pressure from EPA. That pressure rolls downhill. They're going to put pressure on us and other communities to do a much better job of complying with stormwater requirements. So I would anticipate a lot more expense, a lot more record keeping, So we'll put that into a rate study process. Met with Mr. Carl McKiska. He's the executive director of the Pasco County MPO. He and I discussed the US 19 underpass project, several other possible projects that the MPO might be interested in, but introductory meeting with him. On a personal note, I'll be out of the office from August 12 to 16. I'm going to go try to help my parents celebrate my dad's 80th birthday. And August 27 to August 30, my wife tells me we're going to Orlando. So I'll be out of the office those dates. That's all I have, sir. I'll stand for your questions.
Okay. Mr. Kinsella, you have any questions?
On the storm water, was there anything in particular that they were really concerned about that we really have to concentrate on?
The primary, structurally, I haven't gotten a report back from Richie. They took off at 1:30 or 2 this afternoon, and by the time they got back, I was already out of the office. So I don't have that report back yet. I should have that next time we get together. On the policy record keeping, clearly the city has not done an adequate job of record keeping and reporting. And that goes back 18 to 24 months. And so they're working us over pretty hard about that. I've made assurances that we are doing better and will continue to do better, but that was of grave concern. I do think it was, and they said it was helpful that I had full staff there. I had building official staff, or building department officials, had Public Works, myself. Sal would have been there, but he's very much under the weather. So I think they're appreciating that we're making forward progress. But suffice to say, we've not done a good job over the last year and a half of record keeping, reporting. And so we'll see where that goes, and they're going to watch us closely. They're going to make sure that we being me and my staff, are doing the appropriate record keeping, the appropriate maintenance, and the appropriate reporting. So structurally, I'll have that information here in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Councilman McCleary?
You had mentioned that we have a new grant writer coming on board. What is the scope in terms of them grant writing? Is it across all departments, find any available source of funds and chase it down as much as possible?
Yes, sir. And I wrote a fairly robust position description that may have even unsettled our candidate. But yeah, I would expect her to take a look at grants and grant opportunities across all departments, including citywide. You know, if there's something we come up with for PD or fire or Public Works, great, but there's also grant money out there, and she comes with significant federal experience, and in our interview process had a couple of ideas of state money that's available right now, money that the city of Port Richey will want to pursue. Obviously that'll come to all of you for consideration and approval, but she brings that experience, and I would anticipate having her look across but infrastructure, both infrastructure grant money and helping us manage ARPA money as it comes in. So 2 primary focuses for her: CRA management, which is the equivalent of a big grant, and then local, state, federal money for projects that are meaningful for us.
So coastal water quality, water improvement would also fall under that?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Great. Mr. Mayor, if you're with us, you have any questions?
Yeah, I just had first of all, I had a comment. I wanted to reach out and personally thank Mr. Duke, and I know Rachel's been working diligently in terms of, I think we're coming up under the most important function is what we do as a city and what we do as a council, and that's setting our budget for this year coming up and making sure the city's financially healthy. And I wanted to thank the staff because I know they put a lot of time in, and I think we're coming in early and in a very good position. So I wanted to thank Mr. Duke and Rachel for that. And then the only other question that I had is I know that we had purchased some cameras that were being installed by a company to help with security around the building and around the city. And I wanted to know if we could have an update on the installation process.
Yes, sir. Detective Howard has been lead on that project. He and I talked this morning. I think we had 2 more cameras to get installed today. So 95% of them are in place. They're working on the software and who has access, making sure that the people who have access to the camera, it's part of their job to have access. So we're almost done with that. I did not get an update from him at the end of the day. I also didn't see the guys here this afternoon, so presumably we're done. Chief, anything to add there?
So for the most part, we're just up and running with it then?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, very well, perfect, thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Sorrell?
You have 2 new people come in code enforcement and a grant writer. Is that finishing filling the office staff?
In City Hall, yes, we still have an administrative assistant position open, and we'll be continuing the search for that position.
Okay, thank you.
That should complete it.
You're welcome. And we'll go to questions from the public. Mr. Mueller?
Where do I begin? Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. I just want to personally thank Ashley for getting the agenda published. It went out late, but it went out, and I want to thank her publicly for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Would anybody else like to speak? Ma'am?
Audra Toth, 9420 Cochise Lane. I have a recording of when I tried to go into the police station to file a complaint against Babcock for calling me a bitch, and I'd like to play it.
Hold on one moment, please. Mr. Duke?
Yeah, I understand you have audio you'd like for us to hear. For the council's edification, complaint was received. It has been processed internally. It has been processed to my satisfaction, and I consider the situation, the case closed. Obviously, I will not be discussing personnel issues in an open forum.
Well, I have a
excuse me.
rebuttal for that.
Excuse me, the city attorney would like to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Dittmer. Whether you want to hear this or not, I just, in terms of this recording, I don't know, and nor is representation been made that whoever it's a recording of consented to the recording. Okay, so unless there's some representation that the person on the other end consented to the recording, I highly recommend you do not let it be played for her benefit. Okay, because that can be improper. It's up to you.
And can I weigh in on this issue?
Go ahead, Scott.
And, you know, I think it's outside the purview of what we're supposed to be doing as council to go back and second guess operations and how our city manager operates and deals with his employees. I certainly don't feel that it's appropriate to accept anything into the records or minutes. It's beyond the scope of what our function is as a council. So I would be opposed to accepting anything into evidence.
Okay, then I have a rebuttal written, and I have emailed all the city council members plus the city manager, and since Robinson refused to see me, I emailed it all to you. I was called a bitch as I was sitting outside of Walmart in my car waiting for someone to come to my car so I could drive them home. I was not doing anything. All I was doing was minding my own business. At the time, there was some officer there who I complained to who said, yes, I saw it all, and he said that he heard it, he apologized, and we're sorry that it happened. And I said, I'd still like to file a complaint. And he said, well, I don't have time for that right now, ma'am. You'd have to come into the office and get a complaint form. I didn't feel like doing that, so I called and asked to have one mailed to me. One was not mailed. I called again. I called 4 times. Finally, after a month, I got a complaint form. When nothing happened, after almost a year, I decided to request all correspondence made by me to the police department. And I was surprised to find out that Officer Cox said that the incident never happened and that I was lying about it. So, I think there's a real problem with the police department, and since whenever you go into the police department, you are automatically recorded, so I imagine that I can also do the same thing, since it is a public place.
Thank you
That's
for your
all I
time.
have to say.
Would anybody else like to speak? Please come to the podium, name and address, please.
Frank Batari, 5118 Bems Court, Port Richey. Excuse my appearance. I've been running around doing a lot of stuff all day. I help out a lot of people is what I really do. Got a couple of people in trailer parks and dog food today. Went to visit another person. I got to take that person shopping tomorrow. That's what I do. I don't work or nothing like that. I don't have to. But I help people out. That's what I like to do. And my thing is here, as I spoke, this is my 4th time here. I'm asking again about the homeless people with dogs. By law, I had 2 years of law school. By law, if they can't afford to take a dog to a shot, to get shots, rabies shots, license tags and all that stuff, excuse me guys, the police has the right to take the dog away from them. No offense to the poor dogs or the people, but it's in the area of 80% of these homeless people mentally are incapable of having a pet, number one. Another one, provide food and shelter. Don't seem to have that. Police are, by law, able to take that dog away from these poor people. See, I have a big heart. I care about these poor animals. We use these dogs thousands of years ago. Here's a stupid story. Genghis Khan used them about 12, 15,000 years ago. Dogs, cats, and birds. He's probably the best general there ever was. Excuse the way that sounds, but that's what he did. We used them all throughout our wars and everything else. They're our best friends. They've saved more lives than the average whatever. So my point is, I want something done about these poor dogs that might die out on the streets or sitting with their life on a leash, a rope, or a chain, or whatever they're on, when they don't know where the next meal or cup of water is coming from. They don't have their shots. They're probably living with fleas and ticks, whatever kind of diseases and all that other stuff. It's sad to me, and it bothers the heck out of me. It really does. I see it every day. I got 5 big English Masters at home. I spend over $1,000 a month feeding my dogs, because I cook for them. I make them healthy. That's what I prefer to do. And like I said, don't mind my appearance, but, you know, I'm a person who was brought up on 42nd Street in New York by my grandparents who got off the boat from Italy, from Naples and Sicily, and they taught me the simple rules in life. Go out there, bust your butt, get to the top of the ladder, you can get out a little quicker than the other guy. And no offense to anybody here, but that's how I was taught. Work hard, and be good at what you do. And that's what I did, and I got out years back. I don't have to work. I never will have to work. My next thing is, I'd like to know if anything's gonna be done about this, because it bothers me, and I'm thinking about running for mayor.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Can you answer any of that? It's the law. It is the law.
It's the law. You have time to speak, but not for us to give you answers.
I guess
So,
my time is
thank
cut a
you.
little shorter than normal, no?
No, 3 minutes.
4th time I was here, so I guess I'd have come back number 5, right?
That's, you can do that. It's your prerogative.
All I'm doing is telling you what the law is.
Linda, would you like to speak?
Linda Rodriguez, 5917 Lantern Court. I personally want to thank the fire and police. 6 years ago, both of your departments went above and beyond for my family. Every time we called when my husband fell, you came. Sorry. And without question, you guys always helped. When I came to the police department, because there was a prostitution drug ring 3 houses away from me, within 6 weeks, it was gone because of your police department. Your policeman was also the first one to do CPR on my husband. I personally want to thank both of your departments for everything you always do for Port Richey, and I'm here for 34 years. I thank you both.
Thank you, Linda. All right, we're going to move on for comments from the Mayor and City Council. We'll start with Ms. Sorrell.
I'm fine, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Mr. McCleary?
I have nothing, thank you.
Tom?
A reminder, August 4th, which is going to be next Wednesday, the CAC is having their Meet Your Neighbor. It's going to be at Whiskey River, it's Wednesday, 5:30 to 7. Love to see you all out there. Again, it's the first Wednesday of the month, Whiskey River. The only other thing I have, basically it's more of a question. Back in mid-July, when Elsa was going through, we had that issue on Grant Boulevard and Lift Station. And one of the things that you mentioned, and Mr. Duke, was the systems improvement. Has that been identified? Apparently there was an issue and it caused that overflow.
Yeah, the couple of things happened there. The most telling, the most influential was a lightning strike on our radio tower, which knocked out our SCADA system.
Okay.
That's a communication and warning system. That system talks by radio and by phone to personnel. And so when that system was knocked out, the backup system is an actual audible alarm on the lift station. And that's the system that worked. When the water came up, when the pump failed, that alarm sounded. And my assumption is that somebody heard that and called. Someone did call, but whether it was because they saw the water coming up out of the manhole or it was because they heard the alarm. That alarm did work. It's actually recorded in the video that's made the rounds. And so lightning strikes happen. We've worked diligently and with considerable expense to get the SCADA system back up and running. But fortunately, the secondary alarm system that we have did work. Obviously not as effective, probably had an impact of 15 or 20 minutes. Had the alarm come to personnel's phones, they could have responded a little quicker. So we are implementing some additional protective measures. I can't stop the lightning, but if I can redirect it, that would be good. So we're working on that too. But it's taken some time to go through all the pieces of that communication system. It did a lot of damage, and Dave and Richie are working diligently on that. So other than that, in talking to the chiefs and in reviewing what we did through the event, as I said a couple of weeks ago, we weren't tested significantly. We ran through our measures, we put together the personnel and our response plans, but we didn't have a lot of weather to actually, test what happens when it's a real emergency. So we'll continue to look at that, but as far as what we did, it looks to the chiefs and I like we did a pretty good job of getting things implemented and getting protective measures, additional personnel, additional response, additional command staff on duty through the event. So the real test is when the wind and the rain and the water are coming up, and we actually have to put those measures into place. So that's where we are right now.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Great, thank you. Move on to boards and committees. I don't show anything here. Ms. Rodriguez, you took care of it? Great. I'll move on. Let's move on to the consent agenda. We're looking for a motion.
Motion for consent agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving to item 1, to the presentation from the mosquito control. I'll pass that to Mr. Duke.
Thank you, sir. Come on up. Thank you for being here. So a number of weeks ago, I was contacted by the Pasco County Mosquito Control District personnel. I'm going to simplify it and let them go into the details. They kill mosquitoes for us, and that's a good thing. So they wanted to present their program and their operation to you. So welcome. Please introduce yourself and come on up to the podium and fill us in on mosquito control.
Very good. All right, you can all hear me. Yes, I've got my own microphone, so I'm not sure I need to stand right here, but I appreciate the time this evening. My name is Adrienne Rogers. I'm the Executive Director of the Pasco County Mosquito Control District. Today I also have with me Ms. Jillian Meek. She is our Public Education Specialist. And I really just wanted an opportunity to address the council to talk about mosquitoes, what we do for mosquito control, and a little bit more specific information about our operation as a whole. If you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and interrupt me at any time. If you can't hear me or can't see something, please let me know. I apologize. My back is to you all in the audience, but I'll go ahead and get started. All right. I'd like to have you all get used to the acronym PCMCD, the Pasco County Mosquito Control District. It's certainly a lot easier to swallow than the entire name, so you'll hear me reference PCMCD throughout the entire presentation. The district actually started as the West Pasco Mosquito Control District and was founded in 1951 and really only serviced the western portion of the county, the coastal areas where the development was at the time. Since then, the district has gone through a series of 5 expansions to increase the boundaries that we cover. And the most recent expansion in 2003 actually encompassed all of Pasco County. So we're not just the West Pasco Mosquito Control District, we do service all of Pasco County in its entirety. We are a special independent taxing district. We're not a county entity. We have a 3-member board of commissioners. They are elected officials. You may know a couple of the individuals on this screen. Matthew Abbott has been on our board since 2007. Randy Evans joined us last year, about June of last year. And Michael Cox is our most recent commissioner appointed to the board earlier this year. The Pasco County Mosquito Control District is committed to protecting the health and well-being of the citizens of Pasco County. And we do that through prevention and control of mosquitoes and mosquito-borne diseases. Our goal is really to control both pestiferous and disease-carrying mosquito populations to a more tolerable level in the safest, most economic manner, while using a variety of different methods to minimize potential effects on people, wildlife, and the environment. I'd like to give you a little information on mosquitoes and why it's important for us to do the work that we do. There are nearly 4,000 mosquito species worldwide. Here in the state of Florida, we have about 89 different species that have been identified, and they breed in almost every known aquatic habitat, except for very swift currents and open bodies of water. The biology of each species is very unique, which makes our job very unique and specific in targeting different species. They have different larval habitats, the area that they lay eggs and their immature mosquitoes are raised. They have different host preferences, so what are they feeding on? Are they feeding on humans? Do they prefer feeding on your livestock or your dogs and cats at home? The flight range is very different. Some species travel only 500 meters from the site that they hatch off from, whereas our most pestiferous species, the salt marsh mosquito, can actually fly up to 25 miles on favorable winds. So they're vastly different in the amount of area that they cover. They have difference in appearance. Some are very small and others are quite large, and you can actually feel them when they land on your skin. Temperature tolerances. We have mosquito species here that we don't even have in North Florida because they actually have winters up there, and temperatures dip down below 50 degrees. And likewise, mosquitoes that you have here in Florida, you wouldn't necessarily see in New York State, for example. Florida's vast marsh areas, along with hundreds of acres of grassy margins of lakes, constitute an enormous potential area for mosquito production in the state. They utilize freshwater swamps and marshes, salt marshes, mangrove swamps, drainage ditches, the grassy margins around lakes, crab holes, tree holes, floodwater pools, artificial containers, anything in your yard that can hold water, pastures, citrus furrows. If you have gone into any natural area in Florida, you might come out looking like this. You're completely covered with mosquitoes. Here in Pasco County, we have about 40 species that we've identified, but really only 12 of them are important to us for control efforts because they're either very big nuisances and they're pest species or they're potential disease vectors. At best, mosquitoes are nuisances to humans. At worst, they are vectors of very deadly diseases. Over 830,000 deaths annually occur from mosquito-borne diseases. That makes mosquitoes the world's deadliest animal, by far. Here in Florida, the diseases that we're particularly concerned with, as far as mosquito transmission is concerned, fall under two different flaviviruses and alphaviruses. West Nile virus is something that a disease that you probably have heard before. We also have St. Louis encephalitis virus, more recently dengue virus and Zika virus, also Eastern equine encephalitis and chikungunya. Mosquitoes are also capable of transmitting dog heartworm. Everything that we do at Mosquito Control is science-based, and we utilize a very comprehensive integrated mosquito management program that is widely accepted throughout the mosquito control industry. And that includes public education. So actually doing what I'm doing tonight, coming out and speaking to groups like you all, informing them of the importance of mosquitoes and mosquito control, and what homeowners and residents can do to protect themselves from exposure to mosquitoes. Surveillance, that's a big component of what we do. We can't just go out and make applications. We actually have to have data that shows where mosquitoes are and the different species that are in any particular area. Source reduction, the physical manipulation of the landscape. Biological control using things like mosquito-eating fish or Gambusia species that we can place in low-lying areas that tend to hold water throughout the summer or in ornamental ponds at people's houses. They actually eat the mosquito larvae for us. They do our job for us. Chemical applications, we very specifically target mosquito larvae, which is the immature stage. Targeted adulticide applications, and monitoring our mosquitoes for effectiveness on the products we use. The Pasco County Mosquito Control District takes a very proactive approach to mosquito control in controlling mosquitoes in that immature or that larval stage. That's really key to our success. That's when the mosquitoes are concentrated in very large numbers, and it's before mosquitoes become adults and start flying around and biting people and becoming a nuisance and potentially spreading disease. And public education is a very key component to that. You've probably heard the terms drain and cover or fight the bite. These are all very important messages. So in that very proactive approach, we have 10 inspectors that go throughout the county to very specific areas every day looking for mosquito larvae. So they are going out to those marshes, going out to those mangrove swamps, and trying to find where the mosquitoes are so that we know where to focus our control efforts. We use a very high-tech piece of equipment to do that. It's called a dipper. It's basically a white cup on the end of a wooden dowel. And you literally just take it, dip the water, scoop up some water, and look for mosquito larvae. So all of those black dots that you see in those cups, those are mosquito larvae. We pretty much make most of the equipment that we're using in-house. We have a fabrication shop and a machine shop on site, and we're very fortunate to be able to do that, and it helps us to save money and be much more efficient in servicing and maintaining all of our own equipment in-house. Our larvicide trucks are equipped with many different tools that help them to very specifically make applications to areas that are necessary, and a variety of different products on board so that they're ready really for any issue that should arise. When they do identify that larvae, they go out and make a chemical application and treat the water body if they can't render it incapable of holding water. They also have handheld adulticide equipment. Foggers is a typical term that's used, but it's really an ultra-low volume mist that comes out of the handheld equipment that is specifically designed to float through the air and land on a mosquito, and that's how it kills the mosquito. And so every one of our larviciders has one of these on their trucks, so that if adults are present in anywhere that they're doing surveillance, that they can just automatically go and make an application. We also have a variety of ATVs and utility vehicles that we can utilize for those areas that are a little bit larger and difficult for our staff to combat on foot. This one you probably are very familiar with. When most people think about mosquito control, they think about the trucks that go to the neighborhoods in the evenings. These are our ultra-low volume trucks. And a couple of things to note about our nightly missions is that we start about 15 minutes after sunset. And the reason that we do that is because most mosquito species that we are concerned with are most active during dawn and dusk periods, and have a couple of very active periods throughout the evening times. So one, it helps us to make a very large impact on the mosquitoes when they're most active and they're up and flying. So better bang for your buck, if you will. But also it helps us to minimize the times when other insect species and other beneficial insects such as butterflies and bees aren't out foraging. So they're resting for the night. So that allows us to make applications where we're killing mosquitoes, but we're not killing the other insects. So it's very specific and science-based. There's no set schedule to the way that our ultra-low volume trucks operate. It's really all based on that surveillance that our folks are out there doing every day and identifying exactly where the problem areas are. So those are the areas that we can target and focus our control efforts. If you're interested in learning about where the trucks are going in the evening, we post that information on our website daily. By 3:30 p.m. you can hop on pascomosquito.org and find out where treatments are scheduled for that evening, weather permitting, of course. And our trucks are monitored with GPS and dash cameras. We've received calls in the past where a resident will say, oh, the truck came through my neighborhood last night, but the sprayer wasn't on. Or they were speeding down my driveway going, or my yard going 60 miles an hour. That's not an effective treatment. We can actually go back and review that footage to see specifically where the spray was on, when they turned it off, and verify that information and address the concern more appropriately. There are certain aquatic plants that also serve as harborage for mosquitoes. And so we have 2 teams that go throughout the county and specifically target invasive aquatic weed species, things like water hyacinth, water lettuce, cattails, to reduce those plants that harbor mosquitoes and thus reduce mosquito populations. I'm sure you've seen the helicopter, the bright orange birds in the air flying just above the treetops. Those are providing larvicide applications, so again, specifically targeting that immature stage. We also formerly used 2 fixed-wing aircraft to do adulticide applications in the evenings. However, all of that equipment is gone, and we now have 2 of these. The helicopters that we had been using were very old and unfortunately not supported aircraft anymore, and finding parts to keep them safe and flying was becoming increasingly difficult. So this year, in March of this year, we received two new helicopters. And these will not only be doing the larvicide, but also function as adulticide in the evenings as well. We have a very comprehensive education program for our elementary students here throughout the county. Jillian Meek, who's with me tonight, is our public education specialist, and she does a phenomenal job targeting that educational message to our youth. So, she follows all of the state requirements for education for testing. She does summer camps. We participate in fairs and festivals on the weekends, seasonally. So if you have anything where you think this might be a good fit, give us a call. She's pretty strapped for time these days, but if we can fit it in, we're looking for additional educational opportunities. For surveillance, we have entomological staff that go out every day and make collections for mosquitoes. So again, they're looking at various areas throughout the county to try to identify what mosquito species we have breeding where and their relative abundance, how many of them are there. And that's how we dictate where to send those trucks in the evening. Our entomology staff also do research. They're looking for new products to use that will be effective, as well as new chemistries and new products. And then we also do resistance monitoring, so testing the products that we use to make sure that they're still effective at killing mosquitoes. We also have sentinel chicken flocks located throughout the county that help us as an early warning system to identify mosquito-borne disease. And on a weekly basis, we are sending off the blood to be analyzed from the chickens, looking for antibodies to those viruses before they move out of the swamp and impact human development areas. So really, what's the take home? What can you do to help eliminate mosquitoes or reduce mosquito potential? Get rid of water holding containers around your yard. That's really paramount. Drain, destroy, discard containers. Clean out your gutters. If they're full of leaves or other debris, then they'll hold water and you can bring mosquitoes. If you have bromeliad plants, those pitcher plants that hold water, or bird baths, make sure that you're cleaning them out every 3 to 5 days. If you have ornamental ponds, make sure that you either stock them with fish or keep them aerated with a pump that's functioning appropriately. Limit your exposure to mosquitoes. Avoid being out during those peak times where mosquitoes are most active during dusk and dawn. Keep mosquitoes outside of your house. Use screens on all of your windows and doors and ensure that those screens are in good repair. If they have holes in them, they're not going to be effective at keeping mosquitoes out. Use air conditioning, wear protective clothing. I know it's Florida, it's over 90 degrees in the summer, but long pants, long sleeves, that's really gonna be your best protection. And use EPA-approved insect repellents. And lastly, give us a call. That's what we do. We provide that service to the residents. You can log on our website or give us a call at the office and enter a service request, and we will send an inspector out to the area and assess the situation. And if there's something that they can treat on spot, then they'll take care of it that way. But really, that's what we do. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. And we'd love to have anyone interested come out to the district, and we'll give you a tour and show you what we do and explain all of the equipment we have and how we utilize it.
Well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Do we have any questions from
Thank you.
council?
I live in the country and I utilize your agency a couple of times and are always very helpful and very friendly and quick to respond and always yell at me about stuff about your house.
Well, I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Awesome. It's always been a great experience.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, do you have any questions? If you're still there. Mr. Rell? We did have one person. Pat, you're good, Pat? Okay. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we'll move to item number 2, the approval of the tentative millage rate. I'll pass that to Mr. Duke.
Thank you, sir. I'll try to give a layman's explanation of this and then ask Mr. Matthew or Ms. Goslin to fill in the blanks where my explanation is lacking. The state requires that you adopt a tentative millage rate. It does not mandate that you pass a budget at that rate, but it does set a ceiling on the rate that you can apply to the upcoming budget. The budget that Rachel and I are working on, barring surprises, will be considerably below that millage rate. But basically, this is our assurance to the people that this is the highest it could go. And so staff is requesting a approval or a passage of a tentative millage rate of 7.7847.
Thank you. Tom, do you have any questions regarding this?
The only question I have is how did y'all arrive to this
History is setting the rate, the tentative millage rate 1 point above what the current millage rate is. And so in looking at the budget that Rachel and I are putting together, obviously if we were expecting big increases, we'd have to ask you for a higher tentative millage rate. We don't anticipate that. And so 7.7847 is 1 point above what our millage rate is now. And to us, that's comfortable. Obviously, you can set it higher or lower as you see fit, but whatever you set it at, that is the maximum. And so setting it at 7.7847 gives us some flexibility, gives you some flexibility too. If you see our draft budget and you want to spend more money, you have that flexibility. You can't spend more than whatever you set that tentative millage rate at.
Mr. McCleary.
I understand that, this is a point above. It does not mandate that we are increasing taxes at 1 mil. I also understand that last year we did pass a substantial tax increase on our citizens. And with reservation, I'm saying I'm not sure that's the message we want to deliver, that yes, we can do it again. Regardless of where you are in the budget, and I understand that. So I do ask that we proceed with a lot of caution in the messaging that we're delivering. Granted, we are not mandating that we are going a full point above where we were, but we already, I believe we did a full point last year in terms of millage rate. So to do that again, or at least say that we could potentially do that again. And again, I also realize that we are still the lowest in the area compared to our brethren across the river. But is that the message we want to deliver right now, that yes, we can do it again, even though you say at this point, that's not the intent. I'm not even sure where I'm sitting on this exactly right now, but I am pontificating and I am putting caution out there to that and to our citizens.
All right, thank you. I did want to speak on this. The tentative millage rate gives us the flexibility that we need. If we did not increase it and we did need to do an increase for some reason, it would require certified letters and everything out to every citizen. So it's always been done this way, and I understand your point, but I'm comfortable with the tentative rate and the rollback. Ms. Sorrell, would you like to speak to this?
We go through this every year. When we do the tentative millage rate, and I understand your caution about the message to the people, because some of them hear this and think that we are automatically doing that. So I appreciate our city manager's efforts and our vice mayor's efforts to clarify that this is just a state requirement, I believe, that we have to have this, and this gives us the ceiling and the top of the line of what we could possibly do. But our city manager and our financial director are right now saying that they expect the budget to come under that, so I'm not worried about actually going up. So I'm okay with the tentative millage rate at 7.7847.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I think setting the millage rate high and working down from there is going to be probably the only way to go, so we don't have to come back and jump through all the hoops again. But looking at the budget and going through the way our ad valorem taxes are going to come in, I believe that we're probably going to be able to maintain where we're at, if not even better, in terms of reserves in the year. I think we'll meet the goal of paying in the CRA, and I think we'll be able to dial back taxes just a little bit for our constituents, probably a couple of the mills, maybe even a tenth of a mil or a couple tenths of a mil, and that's my goal coming in. But I think to set the millage rate high, I think makes sense at this point, and then we'll work down from there.
Okay, thank you, Scott. We're looking for a motion.
Make a motion that we set the proposed tentative millage rate at 7.7847.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, let's go out to the public. I know a couple people would like to speak on this. Mr. Mueller?
Thank you. Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. While I do realize that this is just a tentative rate, I think the objective needs to be focused on trying to deliver a reduction because of what happened last year. Not only that is you had the potential to compare with what we actually budgeted for revenue-wise in these categories and what we actually received. I think the property values have gone up and we've actually got somewhat of a windfall that probably needs to be adjusted in there. A couple of the other items, I don't know what guidance was given to our city manager and team to build this, but you know, I sat through that Penny for Pasco last week and noticed, you know, everybody had a lot of items on the list. There was a $100,000 line item for a police boat. That could just as easily be replaced with a dredge. I don't know. It's a boat, so it could, you know, fit in that line item. Got to think about that. One other item. Every year we talk about doing canal maintenance and dredging, and every year we don't do anything. I'd like to see this city begin by establishing a budget for canal maintenance. Maybe setting a line item in the budget for $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 to start, and then perpetually go after getting this stuff knocked out. It's something that we as residents here love our water, and I think you owe it to the citizens to try to do something in that regard. That's what we talked about. A lot of you up there have ran on dredging and cleaning up and addressing our waterways, and it isn't getting done. And I'd like to see somebody start here. I've been working with the county to try to get them to establish that as well. So I would like to see you guys and ladies, take the first step in establishing a line item for that. In addition, when you're establishing budgets for this city, I think you ought to zero base every single position and justify that so that we have some kind of comparison to address how we're spending our money for a city this size, and see and look and try to find ways to drive cost out of the city and pass that savings on to the residents. I, for one, would be willing to even go up a point if we can get some positive process moving in that direction. I appreciate your efforts in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Pat Rogers, would you like to speak?
My question was answered.
Great. Well, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Moving on to the final approval of the bulk water meter purchase. And I take that to Mr. Duke.
Thank you, sir. A couple of months ago, Public Works started evaluating our largest water meters, and have found a significant number of meters that were obsolete, inaccurate, much less than efficient. And my direction to Public Works was put together a replacement plan, and this purchase order covers the largest of the meters that are ineffective, inaccurate, inefficient. Also improves the system by utilizing radio communication for read. Any new meter that we're buying has radio communication so that they can be read without somebody having to actually go out, open up the pit and look at the meter to read a number off of it. So it does require your approval, and so I would request your consideration and approval of the purchase of water meters.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Mayor, you have any questions?
No, I was just going to make a motion, the approval of the bulk water meter purchase.
Okay, we'll put that there. Ms. Sorrell, any questions?
Do you feel that this purchase of this water meter is going to address some of the questions and concerns that our citizens have been having about their water charges, especially brought up earlier this evening.
The meters that go in will be much more efficient. They'll be much more accurate. Whether that reduces somebody's bill, I would not say that. It will be accurate.
So purchasing this water meter is not necessarily going to help our citizens. It's going to help us in what way?
It will help us make sure that every drop of water that we deliver is accurately measured and accurately billed.
Okay.
And the meters that we've tested so far have ranged anywhere from 100% accurate, some of them 10% or less accurate.
The residential problem with the water meters has been coming up quite frequently in the last several years. Is there something that we can do to address that, or are we continuing to do that more on an individual basis? When people have problems, they're coming to the city and addressing it with the department? I mean, is that what we're going to have to continue doing, or?
I'd say that's always available to customers. If they've got a concern, they come in. Sometimes there's issues we can identify. Sometimes there's a leak, sometimes there's unexpected usage, but our guys will try to help sort that out. The reality is, if there's a leak on our side, we fix it, but that water isn't going through a meter. If there's a leak on the other side of the meter, it's the property owner's responsibility to fix that. We have policy in place to deal with that, and obviously if somebody gets a water bill that's significantly higher than expected, come in, talk to staff, we'll work through the policy and help them with that. The other thing we're doing, we continue to test meters. We're no longer using the contractor to do that, but we're still looking at, we're down to the residential size meters now. But the 4, 6, 8-inch meters, we started with those. Those move a lot of water. And so we'll continue to look at residential meters. It may not be en masse like we did this group.
So we are doing something to help our people that are having problems with their water issues.
Yes, ma'am.
And really, the citizens need to come into the city and address it directly with the department.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent.
Mr. McCleary?
This bill, one question, I know you have a substantial expense for Avilia Bay. That's a fairly new development. Why didn't they buy their water meter?
Well, I wish Sal was here. He can answer that for you. I don't know.
Because it's a $12,000 expenditure on Avilia Bay, so that's a substantial meter, and that's a new development.
If I remember correctly, we did not have a master meter on that facility, and so we're putting one in, but let me confirm that with staff.
Okay, and looks like the rest of these meters, 2-inch meters, 1.5-inch meters, these are all commercial, so really none of these are for any of our residents per se. This is hitting the commercial areas or the large-scale sand pebble first, and then is the intent to then have another bulk purchase for residential meters, or how does that work per se?
I did direct staff to start with the biggest meters, and euphemistically, the Walmarts, the restaurants, the places that consume high volume. The thought being that if we've got a 4 or 6-inch main that has a meter on it and it's 50% inaccurate, we want to figure that out pretty quickly. As we get down into the much smaller meters on residences, it's going to take a lot more time, and I could test one 4-inch meter and get as much savings as I'd get with 6 or 8 or 10 residential meters. So we will get to them, but this was let's start at the top of the pile and get the biggest ones. We also found a number of large meters that were accurate. I don't want to, when we started, they'd do 10 a week. We were getting 6 or 8 a week that were outside the range of acceptable. As they continue to move through, by the 5th, 6th, 7th week, they were finding 1 or 2 or 3. So, I don't want to give the impression that every large meter out there was inaccurate, but every large meter that we found that was inaccurate, I want it replaced.
Okay.
Also, my understanding, you've identified some of these older meters that need to be replaced.
Yes, sir.
So as soon as, if we do make this purchase, the city would then move forward getting them replaced, right?
Yes, sir. Richie will, and these are specific meters for specific locations. I don't have the locations on here, but these were the meters that Richie said, okay, this meter is, you know, an 8 EBA mega flange 2108. Go get another one. And so he put the list together. He will be diligently replacing meters. And we replace meters now too, but these are, you don't have these meters sitting on the shelf.
I did have one. So there will definitely be a cost savings in labor if we can read these electronically now as opposed to sending out staff to all these commercial meters.
Yes, sir. The efficiency is a side benefit. The accuracy of the meter is important. But any meter we can convert to from manual read to electronic read increases the efficiency, improves the safety. We've got meters in backyards and in trees and all kinds of places. So anything I can do to switch from manual read to electronic read, that's a target that we're going after.
So, and it's also correcting the water loss issue, which is for us a revenue issue. So I'm assuming once we get these in here, we'll actually know what we've been losing.
Yes, sir. That to the extent possible, every drop we produce, I want to make sure that it's billed. There's always going to be loss in the system, but right now our water loss numbers, as you all pointed out to me as I was coming into the job 6 months ago, that's an issue. And so, yes, the more accurate we can get and start with the big ones.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Looks like we have 7 meters here that are getting replaced, plus a bunch of other items being done. So is the expectation from a business perspective, will we get back $25,000 worth of water revenue from the expenditure of $25,000?
I'd be glad to extrapolate the numbers for you and give you a date when we have that back. It won't be this month.
But the expectation is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, okay. All right, we did have a motion from the mayor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Let's go to first, Pat Rogers, you signed up. Mr. Mueller?
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. And I would like to thank Mr. McClary for pointing out the obvious. Avila Bay is fairly new. I would have thought a new meter would have been acquired at that point in time. These things have a useful life of many years. So something's going on there. Is there any warranty associated with that? In addition, this is the first month that I've received one mail with 2 invoices in it, one for my residential and one for my water. So somebody figured out how to bill and put 2 pieces of paper in one envelope, saving the cost of postage. And I want to thank that individual, whoever that may be. And I don't know if any of you have that same scenario, but I thought that was an obvious improvement, and whoever did that, that's all goodness, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to old business. We'll start with Ms. Sorrell.
I have none, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, do you have any old business?
I do. I had one other issue I wanted to bring up that kind of tails off of what we just came talking about in terms of being able to measure water and make sure that we're functioning properly as an enterprise. I think one of the things that's going to happen as looking into the budget, I see that our stormwater, we have a lot more going out in terms of money as opposed to coming in. And I don't see anyone capable in the city that would have the engineering or experience or background to do a study to kind of gauge that so we can fix it. So not only are we going to be meeting the appropriate guidelines in terms of the permitting, but I think that we're going to have to set those rates so that we have the same amount of money going out as coming in. So one of the things I wanted to kind of ask the council is to maybe see if Mr. Duke can explore a company that can come in, maybe as an engineer, and kind of start to reevaluate those water rates and stormwater rates, to make sure that not only are we following the guidelines that we talked about earlier, that are somewhat of an issue, but that we can set the rates correctly so we can make sure that we're charging the appropriate amounts of money.
Okay, thank you, Scott. I believe we did have a water rate study done just a year or two ago. So we need to probably dig that back up and take a second look.
I believe that's true. I'm not sure that it included stormwater.
Okay. But I know we did have a water one done. All right. Any old business, Mr. McClary?
I have none.
None. Okay. All that being said, looking for a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.